for many students, the reason they struggle with languages is because the person who's trying to teach them that language does not understand their struggle. I mean, if you have ever tried to study a language with a professor at any point, you know that if that professor has the language come easy to them, or they gravitate towards the polyglots, or they don't really understand, like, oh yeah, you struggle with these concepts, how can I make it more simple for you? If that's not their perspective, then it just life sucks for you. There's no helping it, because whatever materials they're throwing your way, those aren't the materials that are going to help you. And that becomes problematic. If the greatest idea that your professor might have is, well, here's a I think that my teacher is feeling bad right now. I'm sorry. I, I'm I'm sorry. I I loved your class. I didn't. Please don't change my grade. My name's Matthew Cortman. I'm an adjunct professor of religion in Southern California and a doctoral student who is required to study way more languages than he would himself choose to do. But just recently, I had the experience of learning a language in just 24 days. That's right. You heard me. I was given 24 days. Now, when you have only 24 days to study a language and you are forced to, there's a lot of things that you begin to kind of start to think and evaluate about the language learning process. How is it best done? How are you going to achieve your goal? The biggest problem with teachers is that if they don't get the struggle, then the material they're giving you is not taking that struggle into account. And to not take that struggle into account is as good as not actually instructing you at all in the language. Because while you might get something out of that, if the teacher is not approaching you where you need to at your level, then you're getting maybe a half hour's worth of actual quality instruction from 3 hours worth of lecture. That is a recipe for disaster. You need material that is going to literally help you immediately. It's going to sink into your mind quickly. And so it's very important to realize that if you are the kind of person who has these issues, who can't just pick it up on their own very quickly and fast, you're not a polyglot, then you've got to have plan B. And it doesn't matter. You can't go into a class just hoping that the teacher will get the struggle. You already got to have that plan B already. And especially if you're doing this on your own, you've got no guide, not even one to resist against or to kind of bemoan. You've got nothing. You just want to self-motivate yourself to do it, which is absolutely incredible. But it leaves you wondering, well, there's so many options. What am I supposed to actually do? When I began to do the German program in July, I was very, very nervous. No matter how many languages I have actually taken, every time I start a new one, I get all jittery and excited and nervous, and I don't know how it's going to turn out, even though I kind of do because I've done it so many times. It's a kind of similar rodeo every time you do it, and yet it's also very different depending on the language. So obviously, I wanted to get a head start ahead of time before the class to try and get introduced to the language of German and understand how it was going to function, just to feel a little more prepared, because I was getting honestly scared for what the requirements of this class were going to be. It seemed like such an insurmountable task. So that's going to now lead to the following three resources that I think are quintessential for helping you to learn a language, whether that is a language that's been foisted onto you because of your doctoral program or some other professional need, or it's just a motivated self-desire you have that you are going to pursue and you're going to push through. Well, these three resources will ensure that you can get to that intermediate level. So one of the most talked about resources that everyone seems to have an opinion on is Rosetta Stone. Rosetta Stone is everything you have missed and wanted in learning another language. And I cannot tell you enough how much it can help. So that brings me now to resource number 2, and that is English Grammar for Students of German. Now, this is actually part of a series of books. You can find English grammar for students of French, English grammar for students of et cetera, et cetera. So this is a great book because it actually fills in a lot of those holes that you find in Rosetta Stone that you wouldn't understand, like why is this like this or why is that? So Rosetta Stone and English grammar for students of German is fantastic. They work perfectly in concert together. So resource number 3 is an app called Lingodeer. Okay, now I'm not talking about Duolingo. Don't get that confused. Lingodeer is an absolutely phenomenal resource. Okay, so how do you actually manage to utilize these 3 resources in concert together? So if you want to learn a language in 24 days or 30 days or 6 weeks, whatever your personal goal is, the first thing is to understand is that there will be 2 approaches to using these resources and where your priority will be placed in them, depending on the rationale for why you're learning your language. So if you're like me and you're trying to learn for a doctoral program, you're being forced in the program to take, say, German or French or something else as part of your research languages. So you're given an arbitrary number of days, either it's 6 weeks, like some students at Emory, or it was 24 days at my school, then you're going to need to perform by the day of exam. You don't make the rules, you have to perform, and you're also having to keep up with whatever the test is. Now, let's say in those circumstances, right, Lingodeer is your priority. Lingodeer and English grammar for students of put in the language. Those are your 2 resources to go to because your main goal is learning how to read a language and how to translate it. So for you, that's the best priority you can place in. And also it's true that even if you weren't in a class, let's say you want to avoid taking the class, but there's a deadline for whenever that exam is that you have to take. Again, same point, put your resources into reading and translation with English grammar for students of fill in the blank and with Lingodeer. Rosetta Stone is very focused on speech and thinking and intuitively expressing. So that's not as helpful for doctoral students with the kind of translational goals, even though of course it's very helpful for helping you feel confident in a language. If on the other hand, you are learning a language not for a doctoral program, but because you want to learn it, because you want to expand in it, because you want to grow in it, well, in that case, then you are going to want to use Rosetta Stone in concert with the other 2. And you'll use it together in basically the following way. When I was using Lingodeer, the way that you push through fast is you have to be very disciplined. You need to get through somewhere in the realm of 2 to 4 lessons in Lingodeer every single day, especially if your goal is 24 days like I had to do. You got to go through 2 to 4 lessons every single day of Lingodeer. Okay, and now each lesson has 1 to 2 parts within it. But again, that is the pace of which. So, you could do a lesson in the morning. You can do a lesson at noon. You can do a lesson in the late afternoon. You can do a lesson before you go to bed. Again, if you're consistent in spending your time, and each lesson can take about, each section of the lessons, like if there's 2 of them, whatever, can be like around 8 to 10 minutes to do. So you really should put your resources into doing that and effort into doing that. Now, Rosetta Stone, I would say try to do anywhere between 1 to 2 lessons of Rosetta Stone per day as well. Find a period of time in the day. You might only get through 1. The lessons can take sometimes 20 to 30 minutes as opposed to the 10 minutes or so, which, Lingodeer will be doing. But Rosetta Stone, you should be pushing through at minimal 1 lesson every day alongside your 2 to 4 Lingodeer lessons. As for the book comes in really whenever you need it to come in. You go ahead and pull that out and maybe read a chapter. They're very short. They're only a couple pages. Maybe read a chapter a day starting a week into your study, maybe, or 5 days into your study. Because by then you're already starting to cover so many different aspects of the language that you are, in fact, will be able to start utilizing the English grammar book as a sort of method for reviewing and going deeper into stuff you're already getting exposed to from the lessons that you're learning in Rosetta Stone and Lingodeer. Now, if you are a doctoral student, the same advice goes. Again, you should be focused on Lingodeer, doing 2 to 4 lessons every single day. And again, the same way, you'll use the English grammar for students of German book basically whenever you need to review those principles in greater detail. Follow LingoDeer. You kind of have to follow LingoDeer in terms of its plan of teaching you what at what time, because you have to unlock each lesson one step at a time. And so LingoDeer is really setting the parameters for where you're going and what you'll study when. And the English Grammar for Students of German book is really going to help you to kind of fill in those gaps you don't know about. Make sure that you are going to get all these cool videos, not only about language learning, but I also do a lot of videos and going to be doing a lot of videos about religion. If you did not click the subscribe button, well, then as Game of Thrones would say, shame, shame. There's still time to fix it. Click the subscribe button.